We know what we are, but know not what we may be.
The course of true love never did run smooth.
Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind.
There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
We are such stuff as dreams are made on.
These words were written by William Shakespeare.
Shakespeare, who is a pillar of academic study on university campuses, yet didn't attend university himself.
Shakespeare, whose plays are performed all over the world but seems to have never left England.
Shakespeare, who's both worshipped and reviled.
Who's accused of being racist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, and classist.
And who's admired for transcending the racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, and classism of his time.
Shakespeare, who inspires fear, boredom, anger, frustration, comfort, excitement, and joy.
So what's the deal with Shakespeare?
For a start, Shakespeare can mean different things. First, there's William Shakespeare, an actual human being who lived in England about 400 years ago.
He's really dead.
He is, and there's not a whole lot we know about him. At least not the stuff most people seem to care about.
Then there's Shakespeare, the cultural icon, the greatest writer who ever lived.
Really? I mean, is it reasonable to claim that?
First of all, that's an opinion, not a fact.
And who can even express that opinion and back it up. Has anyone ever read the work of every writer who ever lived?
Is that even possible?
Even though we're big fans, we don't like putting Shakespeare on a pedestal. Treating Shakespeare like a demigod who's superior to the rest of us does a disservice to Shakespeare, to other writers, and to us.
So instead of focusing on the person or buying into bardolatry, that's another word for Shakespeare worship, we'd like to invite you to be curious about the plays and poems Shakespeare wrote. And as actors, we're most interested in the plays. Shakespeare's plays are often treated as literature today, read and analyzed and discussed. And that could be valuable, but it's worth remembering that Shakespeare wrote plays.
It wasn't until almost a century after Shakespeare died that the publishers started calling the collections of his plays the complete works. And works are not the same thing as plays.
Plays are stories, acted out by real people, for real people in real time. And unlike movies or television, they're different every time you do them. Because the actors are different, or the audience is different.
Nowadays, we watch movies with visual effects that make the impossible visible, but Shakespeare didn't even have electricity, so he painted pictures entirely with words.
At the beginning of the play Henry V, an actor called a chorus talks to the audience about the challenges of staging a huge, complex story in a simple playhouse.
Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene.
But pardon, gentles all, the flat, unraised spirits that have dared on this unworthy scaffold to bring forth so great an object.
So the chorus asks the audience to use their imagination.
Think when we talk of horses that you see them printing their proud hoofs to the receiving earth.
And later in the play, the chorus paints a very different picture of the soldiers' camps the night before a big battle.
Now, entertain conjecture of a time when creeping murmur and the pouring dark fills the wide vessel of the universe.
From camp to camp, through the foul womb of night, the hum of either army stilly sounds that the fixed sentinels almost receive the secret whispers of each other's watch. Fire answers fire, and through their paly flames, each battle sees the other's umbered face.
This language is complex and challenging, so it might take a little getting used to.
But language can be an incredibly powerful tool. It can take you places, connect you with others, and help you solve problems.
Learning new language can open you up to a whole new level of understanding, experience, and self-expression.
And a little bit of effort can have a huge payoff. As your skills develop and the language becomes easier and more familiar, you'll have more ways to express your own thoughts and feelings.
Now, this complex language might make you think that all of Shakespeare's stories are about important people like kings and nobles and deep tragic situations, but a lot of them are about just normal people. Like teenagers trying to figure out love.
Helena and Hermia are best friends, but their friendship is tested because Helena is in love with Demetrius, who was in love with Helena, then fell in love with Hermia.
Now, as luck would have it, Hermia's not interested in Demetrius because Hermia's in love with Lysander. But that doesn't make things any easier for Helena.
Oh, and by the way, whither away means, where are you going?
Godspeed, fair Helena.
Call you me fair, that fair again, and say, Demetrius loves your fair.
Happy fair. Sickness is catching. Oh, where favor so, yours would I catch, fair Hermia. Ere I go, were the world mine? Demetrius being baited. The rest I'd give to be to you translated. Oh, teach me how you look and with what art you sway the motion of Demetrius's heart.
I frown upon him, yet he loves me still.
Oh, that your frowns would teach my smiles such skill.
I give him curses, yet he gives me love.
Oh, that my prayers could such affection move.
The more I hate, the more he follows me.
The more I love, the more he hateth me.
His folly, Helena, is no fault of mine.
None but your beauty. Would that fault were mine.
But in spite of great effort, Helena can't seem to win Demetrius's love.
What's up, boo?
Ew.
Hermia.
Ew, no.
Hermia.
Ew.
I love thee not. Therefore pursue me not. Hence, get thee gone and follow me no more.
You draw me, you hard-hearted, adamant. But yet you draw not iron, for my heart is true as steel.
Do I entice you? Do I speak you fair? Or rather, do I not in plainest truth tell you I do not, nor I cannot love you?
And even for that do I love you the more.
Tempt not too much the hatred of my spirit. For I am sick when I do look on thee.
And I am sick when I look not on you.
Poor Helena, right?
But before you think Shakespeare only portrayed women as desperate for love, take a look at Sylvius and Phoebe from As You Like It.
Oh, sweet Phoebe, do not scorn me. Do not, Phoebe. Say that you love me not, but say not so in bitterness. The common executioner, whose heart the accustomed sight of death makes hard, falls not the axe upon the humble neck, but first begs pardon. Will you sterner be than he that dies and lives by bloody drops?
I would not be thy executioner. I fly thee, for I would not injure thee. Thou tell'st me there is murder in mine eye. 'Tis pretty, sure. Very probable that eyes that are the frailest and softest things should be called tyrants, butchers, murderers. Now I do frown on thee with all my heart, and if mine eyes can wound, now let them kill thee. Now show the wound mine eye hath made in thee. Scratch thee, but with a pin, and there remains some scar of it. But now mine eyes, which I have darted at thee, hurt thee not? Nor, I am sure, there is no force in eyes that can do hurt.
Oh, dear Phoebe, if ever, as that ever may be near, you meet in some fresh cheek the power of fancy, then shall you know the wounds invisible that love's keen arrows make.
But till that time, come not thou near me. And when that time comes, afflict me with thy mocks. Pity me not, as till that time, I shall not pity thee.
Shakespeare wrote a lot about mixed up lovers. They're a common theme in his comedies.
Maybe because it's so true to real life.
Maybe for you.
Helena and Demetrius are having this conversation in a forest outside town that happens to be governed by Oberon, the fairy king.
Oberon takes pity on Helena and wants to use magic to help, so he instructs the mischievous fairy, Puck.
Stop it!
To squeeze the juice of a magical flower into my sleeping eyes.
This flower has the power to make the sleeper fall madly, desperately head over heels in love with whoever they first see when they wake up. Puck's never seen Demetrius, but Oberon says,
Thou shalt know the man by the Athenian garments he hath on.
but Oberon and Puck don't realize there's someone else wearing Athenian clothes in the woods. Lysander.
Okay, I'll also be Lysander.
So, Puck uses the love juice and puts it into the sleeping Lysander's eyes, and along comes Helena.
But who is here? Lysander? On the ground? Dead or asleep? I see no blood, no wound. Lysander, if you live, good sir, awake!
And run through fire I will for thy sweet sake. Not Hermia, but Helena I love.
When Oberon and Puck realize that their mistake hasn't fixed anything for Helena, but rather broken up Hermia and Lysander, they use the love juice on the sleeping Demetrius's eyes.
Shall we their fond pageant see?
Lord, what fools these mortals be! These vows are Hermia's. Will you give her o'er?
I had no judgment when to her I swore.
Nor none in my mind. Now you give her o'er.
Demetrius loves her, and he loves not you.
Oh, Helena, goddess, nymph, perfect, divine. To what, my love, shall I compare thy nine? Crystal is muddy. Oh, how ripe and show thy lips, those kissing cherries tempting grow.
Thou art not by mine eye, Lysander, found. Mine ear, I thank you, brought me to thy sound.
Be certain, nothing truer. 'Tis no jest that I do hate thee and love Helena.
Oh, me? You, juggler. You, canker blossom. You, thief of love.
Easy.
What? Have you come by night and stolen my love's heart from him?
Fine of faith. Have you no modesty, no maiden shame, no touch of bashfulness? What? Will you tear impatient answers from my gentle tongue? Fie, fie, you counterfeit.
Oh.
You puppet, you!
Whoa.
Puppet? Why so? Aye, that way goes the game. Now I perceive that she hath made compare between our statures. She hath urged her height, and with her personage, her tall personage, her height forsooth she hath prevailed with him. And are you grown so high in his esteem, because I am so dwarfish and so low? How low am I, thou painted maypole? Speak, how low am I? I am not yet so low, but that my nails can reach unto thine eyes!
Whoa!
For she is angry, she is keen and shrewd. She was a vixen when she went to school, and though she be but little, she is fierce.
Wait, did you just call her a painted maypole?
I did, because she is a painted maypole.
And she's a puppet.
Hermia's got quite a mouth on her,
Sorry.
as did many of Shakespeare's characters, which they used to insult each other in creative ways that we don't often hear nowadays.
Let's meet as little as we can.
I do desire we may be better strangers.
Pray you, stand farther from me.
For thy part, I do wish thou wert a dog, that I might love thee something.
More of your conversation would infect my brain.
There's not yet so ugly a fiend of hell as thou shalt be.
Thou art a boil, a plague sore, an embossed carbuncle in my corrupted blood.
I'll beat thee, but I should infect my hands.
Thou hast no more brain than I have in mine elbows.
Thou art damned, like an ill-roasted egg, all on one side.
'Tis such fools as you that makes the world full of ill-favored children.
Thou loathed issue of thy father's loins.
Thou slander of thy heavy mother's womb!
I think thou art an ass.
Thou damned and luxurious mountain goat!
Why, thou clay-brained guts!
Thou naughty-pated fool!
Thou whoreson, obscene, greasy tallow catch.
Thou thing of no bowels!
Thou crusty batch of nature!
You bull's pizzle!
You filthy bum!
You fustelarian!
You rabbit sucker!
You ruined this butt! Cheerly, my heart. Many years of happy days befall you.
The elements be kind to thee, and make thy spirits all of comfort.
Let all the number of the stars give light to thy fair way.
Joy, gentle friends.
Joy and fresh days of love accompany your hearts.
Whew, it's a good thing Shakespeare could write just as well about friendship.
In Twelfth Night, Antonio has rescued Sebastian from a shipwreck. Sebastian is far from home, so decides to go to Illyria. Sebastian might know people there. Antonio wants to follow, but has many enemies in Illyria, so it's dangerous. But Antonio's feelings for Sebastian are so strong, following is the only choice.
I would not by my will have troubled you, but since you make your pleasure of your pains, I will no further chide you.
I could not stay behind you. My desire more sharp than filed steel did spur me forth, and not all love to see you, though so much as might have drawn one to a longer voyage, but jealousy what might befall your travel, being skilless of these parts, which to a stranger unguided and unfriended often prove rough and unhospitable.
My kind Antonio, I can no other answer make but thanks. And thanks, and ever thanks, and oft good turns are shuffled off with such uncurrent pay.
And here's another scene about friends sticking together.
In As You Like It, Rosalind and Celia are cousins whose fathers have had a falling out. Celia's father, who's now in charge, has news for Rosalind.
Mistress! Dispatch you with your safest haste and get you from our court.
Me, uncle?
You, cousin? Within these 10 days, if that thou beest found so near our public court as 20 miles, thou diest for it. Open not thy lips! Firm and irrevocable is my doom which I have passed upon her. She is banished.
Pronounce that sentence then on me, my liege. I cannot live out of her company.
You are a fool. You, niece, provide yourself. If you outstay the time upon mine honor and in the greatness of my word, you die.
Oh, my poor Rosalind, whither wilt thou go? Wilt thou change fathers? I will give thee mine. I charge thee, be not thou more grieved than I am.
I have more cause.
Thou hast not, cousin. Knowest thou not the Duke hath banished me, his daughter?
That he hath not.
No, hath not. Rosalind lacks then the love which teacheth thee that thou and I am one. Shall we be sundered? Shall we part, sweet girl? No. Let my father seek another heir. Say what thou canst. I'll go along with thee.
It's easy to look at many of Shakespeare's characters and see murderous kings and people who get banished and think, that can never be me.
But Shakespeare created characters we can all relate to.
For example, Romeo. He's the classic obsessed teenage lover. You know, a lot of people sing about love, talk about love, cry about love. But how many people are actually willing to do anything for love? If everything in the world conspired against you and divided you from the one you love, what would you do?
The title character in Hamlet is in a state of internal crisis, unsure how to respond to the death of one parent and the hasty remarriage of the other. Having lived through this past year of global chaos, I find I can identify with Hamlet, who spends a lot of time alone in self-reflection, questioning life, the meaning and the purpose of it. While I don't know what it is to be a prince, I do know the profound grief of losing someone you love, having your whole world suddenly shift, and trying to make sense of life after that.
The The title character in Othello is a black general in the Venetian army. For me, this story really reflects the endurance of black culture. Othello is treated like a hero in Venice, while at the same time being treated like an outsider. The play and the society ultimately destroy Othello, yet, after all these years, the play and the characters still have a hold over us. They have survived and thrived in spite of it all, just like black culture.
Brutus is a Roman senator in the play Julius Caesar who struggles to do the right thing. Worried that Caesar's growing power will threaten the Republic, Brutus joins a conspiracy to assassinate Caesar. Now, I can't relate to being a Roman conspiring a murder against a ruler, but I do sometimes have a hard time doing the right thing. The right thing isn't always easy or clear for me, and I get influenced by other people. Social media, fake news, deep fakes, or just my own confusion about it all.
One of my favorite characters in Shakespeare's plays is Nick Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Bottom is boisterous, very eager to perform, and totally unaware of how ludicrous it is to want to play all the parts. I can totally relate. I think there's a spark in everyone that longs to express itself and be seen, and maybe even be the center of attention. Bottom epitomizes this desire with so much joy and humor, and this brings endless fun to those scenes.
Shakespeare created over 1,000 different characters in his 36 plays.
His plays include monarchs, senators, lovers, murderers.
Soldiers, musicians, clowns, fools.
Shepherds, sailors, carpenters, fishers.
Butchers, courtiers, servants, messengers.
Rebels, spies, spirits, ghosts.
Witches, fairies, gods, children, and even a bellows mender.
A bellows mender? What the heck is a bellows mender?
Someone who mends or fixes a bellows.
A bellows?
They were important when we used fireplaces for cooking and heating, gently pushing out air to feed a fire. Never mind.
We can see ourselves in all sorts of characters. It just takes imagination, curiosity, and an open heart.
And as we identify with all of these different characters and all of their different situations, we not only learn more about the characters, we learn more about ourselves.
Because when you focus on the relationships between the characters and the words they speak to one another, they're often experiencing emotions that we've had, like
Fear.
I have a faint, cold fear thrills through my veins that almost freezes up the heat of life.
Cold, fearful drops stand on my trembling flesh.
Away. They'll kill us.
Kill me tomorrow, let me live tonight.
Oh, whither shall I fly to escape their hands? Ah, Tudor, look where bloody Clifford comes. And so looks the pent-up line over the wretch that trembles under his devouring paws. And so he walks insulting o'er his prey. And so he comes to rend his limbs asunder.
Anger.
Thou basest thing, hence, and avoid my sight!
The most infectious pestilence upon thee.
You nimble lightnings dart your blinding flames into her scornful eyes.
You beast! Oh, faithless coward! Take my defiance! Die! Perish!
Mischance and sorrow go along with you. Heart's discontent and sour affliction be playfellows to keep you company. There's 2 of you, the devil make a 3rd, and 3-fold vengeance tend upon your steps.
Sorrow.
These words are razors to my wounded heart.
Oh, woe is me, to have seen what I have seen, see what I see.
Is there no pity sitting in the clouds that sees into the bottom of my grief?
Now cracks a noble heart.
Grief fills the room up of my absent child, lies in his bed, walks up and down with me, puts on his pretty looks, repeats his words, remembers me of all his gracious parts, stuffs out his vacant garments with his form. Then have I reason to be fond of grief?
Bitterness.
I had rather be a country servant maid than a great queen with this condition. to be thus taunted, scorned, and baited at. Small joy have I in being England's queen.
Not all these lords do vex me, half so much as that proud dame. The Lord Protector's wife, she sweeps it through the court with troops of ladies, more like an empress than Duke Humphrey's wife. Strangers in court do take her for the queen.
What? Will you not suffer me? Nay, now I see. She is your treasure. She must have a husband. I must dance barefoot on her wedding day, and for your love to her, lead apes in hell. Talk not to me. I will go sit and weep till I can find occasion of revenge.
All the infections the sun sucks up from bogs, fens, flats, on Prosper fall and make him by inch meal a disease. His spirits hear me, and yet I needs must curse.
Thy life did manifest thou loved me not, and thou wilt have me die assured of it. Thou hidest 1,000 daggers in thy thoughts, which thou hast whetted on thy stony heart to stab at half an hour of my life. What? Canst thou not forbear me half an hour? Then get thee gone and dig my grave thyself.
Delight?
Thou makest me merry. I am full of pleasure.
Oh, most courageous day. Oh, most happy hour.
Let the sky rain potatoes.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, and most wonderful, wonderful, and yet again, wonderful. And after that, double whooping!
Oh, wonder! How many goodly creatures are there here? How beauteous mankind is. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it.
Some of this language might seem extreme or unfamiliar, but these characters are experiencing some of the biggest moments of their lives.
And in these moments, Shakespeare gives them language that's poetic. And poetry doesn't have to be realistic in an everyday sense. Instead, poetry expresses big feelings in language that resonates for each of us differently, sometimes on many levels.
Through this resonance, poetry touches a deeper truth within us. A truth that's even more real than what we might recognize in our day-to-day experience.
The lines we just spoke are from a range of plays, comedies, histories, and tragedies. Even though we have different life experiences, we can recognize the feelings through Shakespeare's words.
When I expressed fear, I spoke the words of a child caught in the middle of a war.
When I expressed anger, I spoke the words of a queen whose lover has just been banished.
When I expressed sorrow, I spoke the words of a mother who's just lost her child.
When I expressed bitterness, I spoke the words of a dying king who believes he's just been betrayed by his son.
And when I expressed delight, I spoke the words of a young woman who is seeing more people than she's ever encountered in her life.
These feelings are feelings, no matter who we are and no matter our situation. For example, we could take one of the most famous love scenes of all time and perform it our own way.
One of the best love plays in the world is Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
And one of the most recognizable parts is the famous balcony scene.
When Romeo Montague and Juliet Capulet meet, they instantly fall in love before they realize they're from two families who hate one another.
A little while later, Romeo has snuck into the orchard that happens to be below Juliet's window.
And at the beginning, Juliet only imagines speaking to Romeo, who's actually there.
And by the way, wherefore means why.
But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. It is my lady. Oh, it is my love. Oh, that she knew she were. She speaks, yet she says nothing. What of that?
See how she leans her cheek upon her hand. Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek.
Oh, Romeo.
Romeo.
Wherefore art thou Romeo?
Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet.
'Tis but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague. What's Montague? It is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name.
Shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this?
What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other word would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title.
Romeo, doff thy name, and for that name which is no part of thee, take all myself.
I take thee at thy word. Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth, I never will be Romeo.
What man art thou that thus bescreened in night so stumblest on my counsel?
By a name I know not how to tell thee who I am. My name, dear saint, is hateful to myself because it is an enemy to thee.
Art thou not Romeo?
And a Montague?
Neither, fair saint, if either thee dislike.
How camest thou hither? Tell me, and wherefore?
With love's light wings did I o'erperch these walls, for stony limits cannot hold love out.
Thou know'st the mask of night is on my face, else would a maiden blush but paint my cheek for that which thou hast heard me speak tonight.
But farewell compliment. If thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully.
Lady, by yonder blessed moon I vow.
Oh, swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon that monthly changes in her circled orb, lest that thy love prove likewise variable.
What shall I swear by?
Do not swear at all. Although I joy in thee, I have no joy of this contract tonight. It is too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like the lightning, which doth cease to be ere one can say it lightens. Sweet, good night.
Oh, wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied?
What satisfaction canst thou have tonight?
The exchange of thy love's faithful vow for mine.
I gave thee mine before thou didst request it.
And yet I would it were to give again.
Wouldst thou withdraw it? For what purpose, love?
But to be frank and give it thee again.
And yet, I wish but for the thing I have.
My bounty is as boundless as the sea.
My love is deep the more I give to thee.
The more I have, for both are infinite.
So, we all just took turns playing both Romeo and Juliet in this famous love scene. You see, while traditionally people have thought of Romeo as male and Juliet as female, it doesn't have to be that way.
We believe that anyone can play anything, and Shakespeare's plays lend themselves to this because they're so open to reimagining and reinterpreting.
Shakespeare himself introduced a lot of ambiguity in his plays, especially around gender and society's traditional expectations about how we're supposed to behave.
For example, remember Rosalind from As You Like It? After she's banished from her uncle's court, she disguises herself as a man, and in this disguise, stumbles upon Silvius and Phoebe, the shepherds living in the forest of Arden. Remember them?
But till that time come not thou near me, and when that time comes, afflict me with thy mocks. Pity me not, as till that time I shall not pity thee.
And why, I pray you? Who might be your mother that you insult, exalt, and all at once over the wretched? What, though you have no beauty, as by my faith I see no more in you than without candle may go dark to bed? Must you be therefore proud and pitiless? But mistress, know yourself, down on your knees and thank heaven fasting for a good man's love. For I must tell you, friendly in your ear, sell when you can, you're not for all markets.
That shepherd! Now I find I saw of might. Who ever loved that loved not at first sight?
So, while Phoebe thinks she's just fallen in love with a man, the object of her desire is actually a woman.
Another interesting example of gender ambiguity is in Twelfth Night. Shipwrecked and alone in a strange land, Viola disguises herself as a man to get a job in the court of Count Orsino, taking on the name Cesario.
Orsino is in love with Olivia and employs Cesario as a messenger, but Orsino seems to be pretty taken with Cesario.
Cesario, thou knowest no less but all. I have unclasped to thee the book even of my secret soul. Therefore, good youth, address thy gate unto her. Be not denied access. Stand at her doors and tell them, there thy fixed foot shall grow till thou have audience.
Say I do speak with her, my lord. What then?
Oh, then unfold the passion of my love. She will attend it better in thy youth than in the nuncios of more grave aspect.
I think not so, my lord.
Oh, dear lad, believe it. They shall yet belie thy happy years that say thou art a man. Diana's lip is not more smooth and rubious. Thy small pipe is as the maiden's organ, shrill and sound, and all is semblative a woman's part. Prosper well in this, and thou shalt live as freely as thy lord, to call his fortunes thine.
I'll do my best to woo your lady. Yet, a barful strife, whoe'er I woo, myself would be his wife.
So unfortunately, Cesario was in love with Orsino himself, herself, themself.
But something unexpected happens when Cesario tries to plead Orsino's case to Olivia.
If I did love you in my master's flame, with such a suffering, such a deadly life, in your denial I would find no sense. I would not understand it.
Why? What would you?
Make me a willow cabin at your gate, and call upon my soul within the house. Write loyal cantons of contemnate love, and sing them loud, even in the dead of night. Halloo your name to the reverberate hills, and make the babbling gossip of the air cry out, Olivia! 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 Oh, you should not rest between the elements of air and earth, but you should pity me.
You might do much.
So, Olivia falls in love with the messenger, who later tries to make sense of this puzzle.
Oh, and fadge is a fun word. It means turn out or end up.
How will this fadge? My master loves her dearly, and I, poor monster, fond as much on him, and she mistaken seems to dote on me. What will become of this? As I am man, my state is desperate for my master's love. As I am woman, now alas the day, what thriftless sighs shall poor Olivia breathe? Oh, time. Thou must untangle this, not I. It is too hard and not for me to untie.
Shakespeare wrote about other women who broke the confines of femininity. Women who craved power. Women who challenged authority.
At a time when women couldn't vote and had limited rights in many societies, Shakespeare gave female characters a powerful voice.
There's Kate in The Taming of the Shrew.
My tongue will tell the anger of my heart, or else my heart concealing it will break, and rather than it shall, I will be free, even to the uttermost, as I please in words.
Paulina in The Winter's Tale.
If I prove honey-mouthed, let my tongue blister, and never to my red-looked anger be the trumpet any more.
And Amelia in Othello.
No, I will speak as liberal as the air. Let heaven and men and devils, let them all cry shame against me, yet I'll speak.
Shakespeare even created a woman warrior in Queen Margaret from Henry VI. She's married to the King of England, but he's more interested in prayer than politics.
He's too much of a pacifist to lead his armies during a civil war. So Queen Margaret takes charge.
In some ways, she's very similar to another warrior monarch Shakespeare portrayed, Henry V.
Both Henry and Margaret put themselves in harm's way on the battlefield and lead their soldiers with inspiring words.
Hang on a minute.
What?
Agnes, would you be willing to trade?
What, you want to switch roles?
Yeah, I just think it would be really fun to play Margaret. Would you like to play Henry?
Oh, sure.
Let's look at Margaret first. Here she is on the battlefield, leading the men around her.
Great lords, wise men ne'er sit and wail their loss, but cheerly seek how to redress their harms. Why courage then? What cannot be avoided, 'twere childish weakness to lament or fear.
Prepare you, lords, for Edward is at hand, ready to fight, therefore be resolute.
I thought no less. It is his policy to haste thus fast to find us unprovided.
But he's deceived. We are in readiness.
This cheers my heart to see your forwardness.
Here, pitch our battle, hence we will not budge.
Lords, knights, gentlemen, what I should say, my tears gainsay. For every word I speak, you see, I drink the water of mine eyes. Therefore, no more but this. Henry, your sovereign, is prisoner to the foe. His state usurped, his realm a slaughterhouse, his subjects slain, his statutes canceled, and his treasure spent. And yonder is the wolf that makes the spoil. You fight injustice, then in God's name, lords, be valiant and give signal to the fight.
This is one of Shakespeare's earliest plays, but throughout his career, he would write many times about war.
And when Shakespeare gave us these stories of wars from hundreds of years ago and thousands of kilometers away, he was giving us the stories of real people.
Let's take a look at Shakespeare's quintessential warrior monarch now, Henry V, who delivers this speech to the soldiers at a critical point in the battle.
Once more, unto the breach, dear friends, once more, or close the wall up with our English dead. In peace, there's nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of war blows in our ears, then imitate the action of the tiger. Stiffen the sinews, conjure up the blood, disguise fair nature with hard, favored rage. Now set the teeth and stretch the nostril wide. Hold hard the breath and bend up every spirit to his full height. The game's afoot. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry God for Harry, England, and St. John!
Contrast Henry's rousing enthusiasm with the reflections of one of the soldiers, Williams, the night before another big battle later in the play.
The king himself hath a heavy reckoning to make, when all those legs and arms and heads chopped off in battle shall join together at the latter day and cry all, we died at such a place. Some swearing, some crying for a surgeon, some upon their wives left poor behind them, some upon the debts they owe, some upon their children rawly left. I am afeard there are few die well that die in a battle. For how can they charitably dispose of anything when blood is their argument? Now, if these men do not die well, it will be a dire matter for the king that led them to it.
Through his plays, Shakespeare asks us the most complex, important questions and prompts us to grapple with what it means to be human.
One of his most famous plays is Hamlet, a story of revenge that existed a few hundred years before Shakespeare wrote his version. But instead of a straight revenge play, Shakespeare gives Hamlet lots of speeches that reveal a fraught and complex inner life.
I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth. Forgone all custom of exercises, and indeed it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof, fretted with golden fire, why, it appears no other thing to me but a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors.
Am I a coward? Who calls me villain? Who does me this? Huh? Swoons. I should take it, for it cannot be, but I am pigeon-livered and lack gall to make oppression bitter. Or ere this, I should have fatted all the region kites with this slave's awful, bloody body. Villain, remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, kindless villain. Oh, vengeance! Why, what an ass am I?
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep, no more. And by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished.
To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There is the respect that makes calamity of so long life, for who would bear the whips and scorns of time when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin?
What is a man if his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed? A beast, no more. Sure, he that made us with such large discourse, looking before and after, gave us not that capability and godlike reason to fust in us unused. I do not know why yet I live to say this thing's to do, sith I have cause and will and strength and means to do it.
What you think, how you feel, and what you imagine is what brings life to a Shakespeare play. And your ideas are just as valid as anyone else's. That's the beauty of Shakespeare.
Throughout the years, people of all ages, cultures, backgrounds, and personalities have been making Shakespeare their own. His plays have been reimagined hundreds of thousands of times all over the world.
They've been performed in all girls' schools, on the decks of ships, in maximum security prisons, retirement communities, refugee camps, parking lots, and more places than we can possibly name.
The five of us here today are continuing a long line of people who have used Shakespeare's words to tell stories and explore the human experience.
Shakespeare's plays are translated, adapted, reimagined, and interpreted in countless ways. As part of the celebration of the 2012 Summer Olympic Games, Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in London hosted a festival with 37 different plays performed in 37 different languages by companies from all over the world.
There was Richard III in Mandarin and Titus Andronicus in Cantonese.
There was The Merry Wives of Windsor in Swahili and Cymbeline in Juba Arabic.
There was Twelfth Night in Hindi and The Tempest in Bangla.
There was Henry IV, Part 1 in Mexican Spanish, and Henry VIII in Castilian Spanish.
There was Richard II in Palestinian Arabic and the Comedy of Errors in Dari Persian.
In fact, the library at the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust in the UK has Shakespeare translated into at least 90 different languages. You can hear a bit of this right now, keeping in mind these aren't literal translations.
责任重大，很难放松。
That was uneasy lies the head that wears a crown in Mandarin.
همه چیز که برق میزنه طلا نیست.
That was all that glisters is not gold in Farsi.
तारे, मैं थोड़े तो बागी हां.
That was I defy you stars in Punjabi.
Mis lágrimas convertiré en chispas de fuego.
That was my drops of tears I'll turn to sparks of fire in Spanish.
People often think of Shakespeare as this dead guy.
Really dead.
Yeah, which he is, whose work we keep repeating, and why bother?
Part of the problem might be that people treat Shakespeare like the bard, the only poet storyteller worth paying attention to, and this simply isn't the case.
Human beings have been telling stories and using language in powerful ways for as long as there have been human beings. Every culture has its bards, its poets, storytellers, and we have a lot to learn from them.
Hazrat Pilu is considered the father of Punjabi literature. He lived around the same time as Shakespeare. His story of Mirza Saiba is a classic story of young lovers defying their families to be together, something they have in common with Romeo and Juliet.
Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz was a poet, playwright, writer, philosopher, feminist nun living in what we now know as Mexico about 100 years after Shakespeare. She was hugely critical of misogyny and turned her nun's quarters into a salon for intellectual discussion and conversation. One of her most famous poems is Hombres necios que acusáis, which translates to silly man.
Li Bai was a Chinese poet during the Tang Dynasty. That's about 1,300 years ago. He was part of the three wonders of expression at the time, along with Mei Pin's swordplay and Zhang Zu's calligraphy. His poems explored the depths of friendship, the pleasures of solitude, nature, and the joys of drinking wine.
Maulana, also known as Jalal al-Din Rumi, lived in the 1200s in Persia and is one of the most celebrated and beloved poets in the world today. The fundamental message behind the majority of his poems and ghazals is love and finding divinity through abandoning the ego and seeking the truth of love.
Bob Marley was a Jamaican singer-songwriter who brought reggae music and ideas to the world in the later part of the 20th century. He had the courage to share his anger at the tyranny he saw around him, while spreading the idea that love was the path to unity for all humanity. Not only did he share these ideas publicly any chance he got, he conveyed them beautifully through his music.
There are bards everywhere, and we have much to learn from them and to celebrate in their work, Shakespeare included.
Perhaps another challenge in exploring and learning from Shakespeare is that people believe a lot of things about him that just aren't true.
Myth. Shakespeare's ideas were completely original.
Fact, Shakespeare used all sorts of sources. Of the 36 plays he wrote, only 2 have plots that were completely original. And this was considered perfectly acceptable at the time and was what most poets and playwrights did. It wasn't just the story that was important, but also how you told it.
Myth. Shakespeare's language is old.
Fact! Think about this for a second. 5 years ago, were you 5 years older than you are today? Of course not. You were 5 years younger. So, Shakespeare was writing when the English language was about 400 years younger than it is today. Shakespeare's language is younger, more energetic, more vibrant, more daring than our language is today. FYI.
Myth. Shakespeare made no mistakes.
Fact, he often got his geography completely wrong. For example, he describes a shipwreck off the coast of Bohemia, which actually has no coast.
Myth. Every word Shakespeare wrote is precious and perfect.
Fact, while most of the time Shakespeare expressed his ideas with extraordinary beauty and power, there are times when characters say things that are unmistakably racist, misogynist, anti-Semitic, or ableist. And colorism runs throughout Shakespeare's writing, equating whiteness with beauty or blackness with evil. We'd like to challenge that.
Part of making Shakespeare your own is deciding what you're going to do about any language that goes against your values. Do you cut it? Change it? Cutting or changing the language is a tradition that goes right back to Shakespeare himself.
One of the biggest myths of all is Shakespeare is a genius with all the wisdom of the world, a beacon of light and truth that we must look to for the answers.
But Shakespeare doesn't give us the answers. Through his plays, Shakespeare asks questions, big, compelling, urgent questions that are ours to answer for ourselves in all our infinite variety.
Why should their liberty than ours be more?
Am I in earth, in heaven, or in hell?
Can I go forward when my heart is here?
What was I about to say?
To whom should I complain? Did I tell this? Who would believe me?
But goes thy heart with this?
What do you think of me?
What will become of this?
What should we do?
Who is it that can tell me who I am? Who's there?
We know what we are, but know not what we may be.
The course of true love never did run smooth.
Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind.
There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
We are such stuff as dreams are made on.